How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Pei Daled, Daf 84 of Masechta BavaKama. Friends, friends, this is a big old daf. Woo, big old daf. Yeah, Parak 8, the 8th parak is I feel like I need more coffee. Dag nabbit. I have such a headache because the App Store review is giving me a huge headache. They're so annoying. Any of the people at Babylon Talmud, you like an App Store reviewer at Apple? Or know some of the people, or know their ways, or... Dude, they're so random. They just like randomly decide to reject the app. And then when they do, it's like once it gets rejected, like it just goes in this like rejection spiral. Anyways, so if you know any of the people, let me know. All right, I'll upon him. So I have a headache. I already had 2 coffees today. It's super late because I've been dealing with this stuff. And what else can I complain about? Oh, Chevet, I have a reverse complaint. I don't do this very often, so I'm not even sure what the word is for a reverse complaint. But yesterday, I had to go somewhere. I had to test out something. I had to get an Android phone and whatever. So I found somebody with an Android phone, so I went there. And then I over there, they're mamish, they're drilling. Like not just drilling, but drilling. Like stone. They're like excavating. That is loud. So I'll tell you something. If I had to choose between the power washers and that, power washers. So a little reverse complaint. So yeah, I wonder if maybe I should have I was thinking about making another coffee, but okay, we'll have to do it without coffee. Now, the 8th parak of Masechta BavaKama, it's a good parak, but it's like big old dafs. All right, let's go. Pei Gimel Amud Beis. Yes, we're going to talk about plopping versus paying. The whole plopping, or the whole plop or pay question. Do you pay or do you plop? That's be'etzim today's like sugya kind of. Okay, so we're going to start in Daf Pei Gimel with Beis. 4 lines from the bottom. Tanya, they stayed you. Babylon. Wow. Yeah, maybe I should have made that coffee, but it's not ready. Alright. So it says Gemara. Tanya. If they stay ben Yuda Omer. Says if they stay ben Yuda. Ayin tachas ayin. An eye for an eye. Mammon. Pay. Atomer mammon uenu ela ayin. Mamish. Wait, how do you know it's pay? Maybe it means plop. So Omar. Well, the problem with plopping is that what if the plopped, I think somebody whose eye is plopped out, I think is called a ploop. So I think so. I'm pretty sure it's a ploop. So let's say the ploop had, so what is it? Right, so if the ploop had a big eye, and the plopper had a small eye. So now what? So if we're gonna plop over here, so then it's not necessarily a fair trade, right? If the ploop had a big eye and the plopper has a small eye, so then it's not a fair trade. So it's not a fair trade. So therefore it has to be pay, not plop, because by paying you just pay the value whatever it is. But plopping, it could be an unfair trade. So ayin tachas. So heach nikori be ayin tachas ayin. So v'chitemo kol ki ay shakil mine mamona. And you're going to say, okay, fine. Look, in general, if the eye is the same, quality, level of eye, so then you plop. But in a scenario where it's unequal, right? The ploop has a big eye and the plopper has a small eye. So in that case, you pay. But the problem with that is that we need one rule for everybody. No matter the size of your eye, the halacha needs to stand, needs to be the same. And therefore you can't have, for these people they're plopping, for these people they're paying. No. Plop or pay. And therefore, since it's not shaykh to say plop, because, the ploop and the plopper might have different size eyes, so therefore it must be that we're talking about paying, so that everyone just pays. Okay. So, where am I? Okay, Ashav l'kulchem. Amri, my kusha. So the Gemara says, wait, maybe not. Maybe we can plop. And what's the problem? Are you concerned about the ploop and the plopper and the big eye and the small eye? Maybe it's not about the size of the eye. Maybe it's about the vision, right? What happened? The ploop lost his vision. So we plop out the plopper's eye so that the plopper also loses his vision, and that's what we're doing. Vision for vision. So therefore, so maybe plopping does make sense. So the ilotema, and if you don't say like this, let's say you have a kohen shargis agadol. Let's say you have a little fellow who kills a big fellow. V'gadol shargis hakohen, or a big fellow who kills a little fellow. Heichi kadlin onle. So skip the next line and a half because it doesn't really make sense. So then what, right? If you have a little guy who kills a big guy, so killing the little guy isn't going to be a fair trade. He killed a big guy, but still we do say no. Little guy kills a big guy, kill little guy. So elo nishama shakil mine, nishama amrachman nishkol mine. Rather, the way that it works is that the little guy, even though he's a little guy, he killed a person, so we kill him. So it's not about the size; it's about the outcome. That little guy brought death to big guy. We bring death to little guy. Plopper plops out Ploop's eye, and now Ploop can't see. So therefore, Plopper can't see. We plop out his eye. The size of the eye is irrelevant. It's the vision that we're after. Hachinami. Okay, so we could say the same thing over here. It's not about the size of the eye. It's about the outcome, which is vision. Babylon. Okay, fine. So it sounds like maybe plopping is an option. Tani, we have another brayso. So Reb Shimon ben Yechai. It says Reb Shimon ben Yechai ayin tachas ayin mammon. So when it says an eye for an eye, we're talking about mammon. We're talking about payment, right? Pay, not plop. Atomer mammon u'einu ela ayin. Wait, how do you know it's pay? Maybe it is plop. Ayin mamish. So says the Gemara. The problem with that is Aresha Oyosuma Visime. What if a blind person plops out, right? Somebody who already doesn't have an eye plops out an eye. Right? Maybe he's missing both eyes and he plops out an eye. So then what? Kiteh v'kita. Or what if a guy, his hand is plopped off and he plops off somebody else's hand? Chiger v'chiger, or he's already, some kind of a plop, and he does some kind of plopping. So he'ach ani makayim boze ayin tachasayin. So how are you supposed to do ayin tachasayin, right? So it has to be pay, not plop, because if it's plop, so then if you have like a guy without eyes who plops out somebody's eye, then what? How are you going to do plop for plop? He's already plopped. He's already a ploop. So therefore, it must be that we're talking about money, because money, it can be shaykh to everybody. Plop, ploop, everybody. So, okay. And we're saying it has to be mishpat hashav l'kulchem. It has to be the same law for everybody. So rather, it must be that we're talking about pay, not plop. Amrei umay kusha, and then the Gemara says, that's what the Gemara says. Shtikul krechts. Right? The Gemara says, Dilma heicha de efsher heicha de lo efsher. Look, the law is clear. The law is plop for plop. Now, in a scenario where it's impossible to plop because he's already a ploop, so then you pay. But in general, So long as you can plop, you plop. If you can't, so then you pay. Because if you don't see like this, or maybe even wait, 1 second. No, wait, I skipped some important stuff. I skipped some really important stuff. 1 second. And he's potter. So look, the halacha is plop for plop. In a scenario where a fellow is already a ploop and he can't plop, well, we can't plop him because he's already a ploop. So then, okay, so there's nothing to do. All right, move on. He's already a ploop, right? Because if you don't say it like this, treifa, shargis hashalim. For example, if you have a treifa, right, a fellow. We're not talking about animal here. We're talking about a fellow. A fellow's a treifa. He's gonna die. He's got some, disease that he's gonna die from. And then he kills somebody else. So we don't kill him because he's already considered a dead man. So, right, so treifa, shargis hashalim, ma'avdinan le. Eleicha de efsher, hechel efsher lo efsher, fatrinan le. Look, the halacha is, look. If a fellow kills somebody else, we kill him. But what about the fact that if you have a treifo who kills somebody, you can't kill him because he's already considered dead. So then, so what is that? What implications does that have for people killing each other and we killing the killers, right? But therefore, Reb Shimon is saying is that, well, because you can't plop out a ploop, so therefore there's no plopping at all, well then we should say then that a fellow who kills somebody else doesn't get a capital punishment, because what about a fellow who's a treifa? No, rather, where you can apply capital punishment, you apply capital punishment, and if he's a treifa, so then you don't apply capital punishment. Here also, wherever you can plop, you plop, but if you have a ploop, you don't plop. Alright, fine. Dveri bishmal tana, they taught in the besmedish of bishmal, Amar Kra, the pasuk says, Kain yinosin bo. That when the pasuk says, right, kasher yitain mum ba'adam kain yinosim bo, that just like a fellow hurts his friend and causes damage to his friend, so kain yinosim bo. Nisina, right, it says ve'ein nisina ela mammon, and that's talking about mammon. Pay, not plop. Elamiata, we ask the kasher. Kasher yitain mum ba'adam hachinami de mammonu, but I don't understand. When that very same pasuk says kasher yitain mum ba'adam, right? It says kasher yitain mum ba'adam ken yinosin bo. So we're saying yinosin bo means mammon. So kasher yitain mum ba'adam, we're talking about money. Obviously now we're talking about hitting. We're not paying. Right? Kasher yitain mum ba'adam, when a fellow hits his friend. So Amri Dver Bishmal Kra Yisere Darshe. So we say, look, we're darshaning in extra pasuk, right? This kasher yitain mum ba'adam ken yinosin bo is extra. Michdi, on the one hand, right. We say, let's see. The very previous pasuk had said, "Ksiv ish ki yitain mum ba'amito kasher also ken yoselo." The pasuk had already said in the mamish, the pasuk before this said, right, again, v'ish ki yitain mum ba'amito, a fellow who hurts his fellow kasher also, just like he did, ken yoselo, so shall be done to him. So can you nosim bo lomali? So once we already said that whatever he did shall be done to him, so why do I then need to say can you nosim bo? Shmamina momin, to say that, well, when we say just like he did is done to him, what does that mean? Does it mean pay or plop? So when he says can you nosim bo, we're talking about nisina, we're talking about money, we're talking about pay, not plop. So kashi itin mum bo adam lomali. Okay, fine. So if we say that ken yinosim bo is to teach me pay not plop, what do I need? Kasher yitain mum ba'adam, which is right before that. So the ba'i michtov ken yinosim bo kosav nami kasher yitain mum ba'adam. Sounds like we don't really need it, but just because we're about to say ken yinosim bo, so we also say the first part of the phrase, which is kasher yitain mum ba'adam, but we're not learning anything special from there. Just kasher yitain mum ba'adam ken yinosim bo. Kind of gives both sides of the the damaging and the damage that we do to the damaging fellow. Wow, this is a slow moving daf. 15 minutes in already, and it's a big daf. It's a big old daf, as I said from the beginning. I was very transparent. I said it's a big daf. The very b'chia Tana, we talk about the besmedish of b'chia. Amar Kra, the pasuk says yad b'yad, davarnito miyad liyad. Okay, so we're talking about Adam Zobim over here. And for example, if they were testifying that the fellow needs to, I guess that a fellow plopped off somebody else's hands, and then they become Edim Zom. So it says Yad biyad davar nita miyad liyad. So Edim Zom, so we do to them what they tried to do to their fellow. What they tried to do to their fellow. So my new moment. And when it says, right, so we say Yad biyad means something that's given from hand to hand, which is money. So we're saying pay, not plop. Elamiato, regel beregel, nami, hochi, hu. So what are we going to make the same drasha by regel beregel, something that's given from foot to foot? What does that mean? So we say, look, we're dashing the extra pasuk. Look, the pasuk already says that by Edim Zom, you do to them what they tried to do to their fellow. Yad biyad lomali, and if it means mamish, plop for plop, so then why do I need yad biyad at all? Shmamina mamun. So the whole point of yad biyad there is to teach that dafka davar nitam yad liyad, pay not plop. So regel beregel lomali. Why do I need regel beregel? Okay, so from yad biyad we're talking about money. What do we learn from regel beregel? Adichsiv yad biyad kosav nami regel beregel. Look, since we wrote yad biyad, which we need in order to teach pay not plop. So also when it says so therefore we're talking about hand to hand. So we also say foot to foot, but really hand to hand is what we're learning out from. Not really learning anything from foot to foot. All right. Abai Omer says Abai. Osyu midatani devei Chizkiya. We learn it out from the Tana devei Chizkiya. The Tana devei Chizkiya. We talk about the Bismillah of Chizkiya. Ayin tachas ayin, eye for an eye. Uah. Nefesh tachas nefesh. A soul for a soul. Velo nefesh v'ayin tachas ayin. So the pasuk specifically says, look, an eye for an eye, a soul for a soul, but not an eye and a soul for an eye. It's an eye for an eye, not an eye and a soul for an eye. Okay. Where am I? So ayin tachas ayin, nefesh tachas nefesh, velo nefesh v'ayin tachas ayin. Now, v'isagadaitech mamish, and if it enters your mind that it mamish means plop for plop. Right? That if someone got his eye plopped out, so then we plop the plopper's eye out. Well, in Visagadaitech Mamish Zimnin, there are going to be instances, the Mishkachas La Ayin V'nefesh Tachas Ayin. There might be scenarios where it isn't an eye for an eye, it inadvertently becomes an eye and a soul for an eye. The body of your lay, because as we're plopping out the plopper's eye, nafka le nishmase, maybe he'll die. And therefore, and what will end up happening, well, that it will end up not being plop for plop. It won't be eye for eye. It'll be eye and soul for eye. And that's not the halacha. The halacha is an eye for an eye, not an eye and a soul for the eye. Well, my kusha would say, meh. Dilma meimod amdinon le, imotzi mikabel of dinon, vilomotzi mikabel of dinon. Look, plop for plop. And, you plop out the eye, we plop out your eye. And what we do is we do an evaluation. We do a medical examination to see if you can handle the plop. If you can handle the plop, we plop. If you can't handle the plop, we don't plop. Now, v'iyom dinon demotzi mikabel. And if we evaluate that he can handle the plop, v'avdinon bei, and we plop him, v'nofak ruche, and he dies from the plop, we had evaluated he could handle it. Turned out he couldn't. Yimais leimus. Okay, well, if it happens, it happens. Milo tanan. After all, do we not learn in the Mishnah, Kabi Malchus, by Malchus amdu v'ames tachas yado potter? Right, by Malchus, the halacha is that they evaluate how much he can handle, and then they whack. Now, if it turned out, right, if they said he can handle X, it turned out that he couldn't and he died, chaval. But okay, it is what it is. So fortunate. So therefore, why don't we? So it's not a really good proof over here. Meaning, Abayi's whole proof from the Tana of Chizkiya is that it says an eye for an eye, and you could theoretically have a scenario that if you plop out the eye, you might die from it, and then it'll be an eye and a soul for an eye. But we just need an eye for an eye. So we should say, meaning what we could do is look, an eye for an eye, and we have to evaluate him to see if he can handle the plop, and if he can, then we do it. If he can't, then he can't. In a scenario where we thought that he could handle it, but he couldn't. Okay, well, it's an unfortunate situation, but that wouldn't necessarily stop us. Okay, so it sounds like it's not necessarily a super strong proof for pay not plop. Okay, so the Gemara says Zid Mishmei de Rabba, but the Agos V'Tzurim I think says Mishmei de Rave. I feel like I like that better, so I'm going to do that. Zid Mishmei de Rave Omar Kol. The Bud says Petza Tachas Potza, a Petza for a Potza. Litein Tsar B'Makum Nezek. To say that even when you pay Nezek, damages, you also pay for the pain. V'Sagadaitech Mamish. If it enters your mind that it means plop for plop, well then why should there be an extra payment for pain? If we're saying plop for plop, right? You plop out somebody else's eye, we plop out your eye. So that should be a full payment. You plopped out somebody else's eye, we plop out your eye, we're even. Why should he have to pay additionally for the ploop's pain? He's also going to experience pain when they plop out his eye. So therefore, it must be that we're talking about money, and you pay for things separate. You pay for the value of the eye separate, right? We evaluate him as an evet. You pay for the pain separate, etc. My kusha, why is that such a strong question? Dilma ika inish de mefanek isleit tzara tfei, vika inish de lo mefanek leis leit tzara, the manaf committed, the meizva lei heach de beni beni. The Gemara says, it's not such a strong proof for pay not plop, because we could say, look, some people are more sensitive to others. So like, maybe, for example, if the ploop experienced quite a bit of pain during the plop, and now the plopper maybe has a higher threshold for pain, and therefore it doesn't pain him as much when we plop out his eye. So maybe it is plop for plop, and when we plop out the plopper's eye, if he doesn't experience pain like the ploop experienced pain, so then still he would have to pay the ploop the difference. So maybe it could be plop for plop. Okay. Rav Papa Mishmei de Rava Amar Kra. This is a Papa in the name of Rava that the pasuk says V'rapo Yirape Liten Rufu B'Makum Nezek. Okay, so we have to pay for the hospital bills. Now V'Sagadaitech Mamish, and if it means plop for plop, Jechid Ai Bayase Ainami Bayase. Well, just like the ploop requires medical bills, but we're saying that the punishment of the plopper is that we're going to plop out his eye. Well, then he's also going to have his own medical bills to pay. So, like, why would he pay for the ploops separately, I guess? I guess part of his punishment is paying for his own medical bills. My kusha, dilma ika desalik bisrei heya, ika desalik bisrei heya. Okay, I think what it's saying is that some people heal in different ways. The manaf gemina, the mace of leheyach, the beni beni. Like, maybe if basically the ploop's hospital bills are going to end up being more expensive than the plopper's hospital bills, so the plopper would pay the ploop the difference. Maybe that's what it means for the medical bills. Is that so? Maybe it is plop for plop, but just he pays the difference in terms of medical bills. Rav Ashi says, Rav Ashi, Asya tachas mishor. We learn out Gzeir Shava tachas from shor. Ksevach, it says over here ayin tachas ayin. It says an eye for an eye. Or ksevasim shalim shor tachas hashor. Malal and mammon afkan mammon. Just like by an ox we're talking about pay not plop. So also by people we're talking about pay not plop. My chazit elafta tachas mishor and elaf tachas meudim. How come we're learning out the Gzeir Shava from an ox to say pay not plop? Maybe we should learn out tachas from people where it's mamish plop, right? Tichsiv, as it says, v'nasata nefesh tachas nefesh, right? If a fellow kills somebody else, so we kill him, right? We mamish do the same. So malahol mamish afkan mamish, just like over there, just like you killed, we kill you. So here also, you plopped, we plop you. So if we learn it out from animals, it would be pay not plop. If we learn it out from the people, it would be plop not pay. So Amri done in nizakin mi nizakin, vein done in nizakin mi misa. We say, well, better to learn out damages from damages, right? Damaging people and damaging animals to say pay not plop, rather vein done nizakin mi misa, rather than to learn out damages from death, because by people we're talking about death. So adarabba. Done in Adami Beima. I would say Punkt Fakir. Better to learn out people from people rather than people from animals. Elam Ravash rather says Ravash mitachas asher ino yalefle. We learn it out from tachas asher ino. So we learn out tachas from ones. That by ones it's nizakin and it's people and there's a 50 shekels fine. So yalef lei, so adam v'nizikin, it's damage and it's people and it's payment. So pay, not plop. Tani Rabbi Eliezer, Mrs. Rabbi Eliezer, ayin tachas ayin mamish. So when it says an eye for an eye, it means plop. Mamish takadatich. Do you really think it means mamish? Rabbi Eliezer leislei kol ani tanai. What about all these tanoim that we've just been quoting? Right, all these brises that we're quoting about pay, not plop. Why is Rabbi Eliezer saying plop? So leislei kol ani tanai. Omar, I don't know. Rabba, Rava. What do you want to say? Rabba or Rava? My Rabba. Lomar she'ein shaman also keved, that we do not evaluate him like an Eved. Amar le'abai l'kaman k'ben chorin. But then I don't understand how you're supposed to evaluate the person like a for the money. So ben chorin mi islay demei, but we don't evaluate ben chorins. We evaluate Eveds. Elamar of Ashi lomar she'ein shaman also ben nizak el b'mazik. So when we're talking about evaluating the eye, we're talking about evaluating the eye of the mazik, not the eye of the nizak. Interesting. So if somebody plops out somebody else's eye, so he has to pay, but pay the value of whose eye? The value of the nizak's eye or the value of the mazik's eye? So it says, Rav Ashi explains over there that we're talking about bimazik shamina, that we evaluate the eye of the plopper, not the ploop. There was a donkey who, and the donkey plopped off the hand of a baby. Also the commentary of Papa, so by Shmuel, so the case came before a Papa by Shmuel. Amalu, and he says to them, Zilu shomulei arba dvarim, go and evaluate the 4 things, right? Tsar, Ripoy, Shevis, and Boshes. Amalei Rava va'anon chamisha tanan. Rava says, wait, but I thought there's 5 things. Nezek, Tsar, Shevis, Ripoy, and Boshes. So Amalei Levi mi nezek, I mean in addition to nezek ka'amina. So yes, nezek and then the additional 4. Amalei Abai, but then Abai says, V'achomer hu, but we're talking about the plopper is a donkey. V'chomer enum shalom el nezek, and a donkey only pays for nezek. There's none of those other payments when it comes to a donkey, right? These additional payments are only for people. So Amalahu Zilu Shamulei Nizke. So I guess Papa Bar Shmuel said, okay, fine, just pay the nezek. Okay, so now in order to do that, we're going to have to evaluate the baby as though you were an Eved, and what's the value of the baby with a hand versus without a hand? So Amalu, so he says to them, Zilu Shamu Ka'avda. Okay, so go evaluate the baby like an Eved. Amalu Avua, at which point the father of the baby spoke up. Avua di'inuka lo ba'ina dezila bei milsa. I don't want that. I don't want that. It's not right that my child should be evaluated like an Eved. So amulei v'aka mechayeves li'inuka. They said, okay, but you're causing your son to lose out on the damages that he's owed for his hand. So he says, look, I don't feel comfortable evaluating my child as an Eved. In terms of the money that he's going to lose out, when he's older, he can come to me and I'll sort out the money with him. All right, fine. All right, great. I could really use a coffee. This is a big old daf. Yeah, we're at the bottom of Peidal Meralef now. 1 second. Yeah, I could totally fall asleep right now. I'm not tired or anything. Well, I am tired, but I'm not tired in the short-term memory loss kind of tired. But I could probably just pass out right now. I don't know, this whole App Store thing, I'm telling you, it's been driving me crazy for the past 12 hours. I went to sleep super late last night dealing with it, and then didn't really sleep much and dealing with it this morning. I tell you, it just gets into this rejection spiral that some schnook decides for whatever, it's never for a good reason. It's always for some silly reason that all of a sudden something that's been there for years, they decided they're going to ask about it. And then just once it gets rejected, it gets into this rejection spiral. And it's just really frustrating. All right. Okay. The reviews are very inconsistent. It's sometimes it could take 15 minutes, sometimes it could take a day, sometimes it could take a week. So it's just sometimes they'll just pick some random thing to ask about. Sometimes they'll decide that they can't find something which is there. It's it's annoying. Au Torah de Olas Yode de Yinuka. So so there was an ox that bit off the hand of a yingel, of a baby. Also the Kabi, the Rava, so the case came before Rava Amalu, he says to the people, Zilu Shaimu Ka'avda, go evaluate the baby like an Evan, and let's figure out the value of the hand. Amule, they said to Rava, but didn't you say Kol Nishum Ke'evid Ein Govanosu B'Bavel? But Rava, didn't you say that whenever we evaluate like an Evid, right, things that are not sort of like objective values, like a loan of $1,000, but something that you have to evaluate, like the value of the hand, like an Evid, so we don't collect these things in Bavel. Amilu, so Rava says to them, Lo tzricha di itofas. Well, it's necessary because if the father of the baby would grab payment from the owner of the ox, the question is, how much of it can he keep? So in order to know that, once he already grabbed it, so then for that we evaluate. Okay. Where am I? Fine. Rava the Taime Dava Rava, and Rava is consistent with his reasoning that he says Nizke Shor B'Shor, that if an ox is damaged by a fellow ox, V'Nizke Shor B'Adam, or if an ox is damaged by a person, Govin also B'Bavel, that can be collected in Bavel. Nizke Adam B'Adam, V'Nizke Adam B'Shor, but a fellow who is damaged by another fellow, by a fellow, a fellow who is damaged by a fellow, or Adam B'Shor, or a fellow is damaged by a shore, by an ox. So basically, an ox that gets damaged, whether by a fellow ox or a fellow, well, not a fellow, but a fellow. Okay, why am I confusing things? If an ox gets damaged, whether by another ox or by a person, it's collectible in Bavel. If a person gets damaged, whether by an ox or by another person, so that is not bezdinable in Bavel. Okay, where am I? Alright, I gotta get my act together. I'm getting my act together, and we're gonna do this. How come when people get damaged, we don't judge that in Bavel? Because you need mumchim. You need these expert judges, and they're only experts in Eretz Yisrael, right? Because you had to have smicha, which was like rabbinic ordination passed down through the generations, person to person from Moses, and you only do smicha in Eretz Yisrael, not in Bavel. So in Bavel there were no smichim, there were no mumchim, and therefore we don't judge, and therefore we don't judge the when the people get hurt. So Elohim ba'in v'leka, because there's none of these mumchims. Nizke shor b'shor v'shor ba'adam nami, but we should say the same thing that when an ox gets damaged, so Elohim ba'in v'leka, so why we should also require experts for that. So Ela ma'ishna shor b'shor v'shor ba'adam. So what's the difference by when an ox gets damaged that we do adjudicate? Maybe that's a good word, adjudicate. In Bavel, because in Bavel, the judges in Bavel adjudicating the case involving the ox that got damaged, they are the messengers of the smuchin, the experts in Eretz Yisrael. But mididava odos vavos, okay, so mididava odos vavos, just like in Bavel, judges can adjudicate on hodos, which are if somebody admits that he owes money, or halvos, right, that a loan took place, right? Meaning witnesses that testify that in front of them somebody admitted that he owes money, or witnesses that testify that we saw a loan take place. These can be adjudicated in Bavel because we treat it as though the judges are serving as the messengers of the expert judges in Eretz Yisrael. Adam ba'adam v'adam b'shor nami shlichusai ka'avdinam. But why don't we say the zel bazach? Why don't we say the same thing by a person that gets damaged? That should be adjudicated in Bavel, and that the judges are acting as the messengers of the judges in Eretz Yisrael. Just like by Udos Vavos. So Amri, they say, Kiko Avdinon Shlichusai Midi the Kimlon Begave. Look, when we say that the judges are serving as the messengers of the judges in Eretz Yisrael, that is for objective things like lending $1,000. That's an objective amount. The Mididol Kimlon Begave, but things that are not an objective amount, for example, trying to evaluate the value of like a hand or something, by people. Lo avdin and shlichusayu, we do not, right, these subjective amounts that we have to evaluate to determine, we do not say that the judges in Bavel are the messengers of the judges in Eretz Yisrael. But when it comes to an ox that gets damaged, it's also in a subjective amount that we have to evaluate. So why do we say that is judgeable adjudicatable in Bavel? Okay, so it must be because we say, well, to figure out the value of an ox, just go out to the market and find out how much oxen are being sold for. But say the same thing by the people. You want to know the value of a person, go out to the market, see how much an evid is being sold for. And more so, tashnum kefil v'tashnum abba b'achmisha diketzi naivit shlichusayu. But and more so, if we're saying that it's all about objective amounts can be adjudicated in Bavel, well then we should collect kefil and daled v'hei in Bavel, but we don't. So amri ki koavdinon shlichusayu b'mamona b'knosa lo avdinon shlichusayu. So okay, so we say, you know what? What kinds of things do we adjudicate in Bavel? We adjudicate mammon, hodos, halvos, financial things, but not fines, right? Kefel, dal, hey, those are fines, right? A fellow steals epis, so maker did, and he has to return what he stole. The fact that we charge him double, 4 times, 5 times, those are fines. Fines would not be judged in Bavel, but basic, financial decisions can be adjudicated in Bavel. Adam ba'adam d'mamono na'avit shlichusayu. Okay, but when a fellow gets hurt, so that's mammon. It's not knas. He wants to get paid his damages, what he rightfully deserves. That should be able to be adjudicatable in Bavel. So ki ko'avdinon shlichusayu. So when we say that in Bavel they are the judges are acting as the messengers of the judges in Eretz Yisrael b'milsa d'shchicha, for things that are common. Adam ba'adam de lo shchicha lo avdinon shlichusayu. But when a person gets hurt, which is apparently not so common, so then, for a fellow to hurt another fellow, which is not so common, so we do not judge these in Bavel, and we don't say that the judges would be considered the messengers of the judges from Eretz Yisrael. I read Boshes. Skip to Ufram de Shchiach. But what about boshes? What about embarrassment? That is common. So navich shlichusayu. So we should say that embarrassment cases should be adjudicatable in Bavel, and say that the judges in Bavel are serving as the messengers of the judges in Eretz Yisrael. Ami ochinami. Say, yeah, okay, that sounds like a great idea. Because after all, Rav Papa collected 400 zuz for an embarrassment case. So it sounds like in Bavel we do judge embarrassment cases because they're common. Valei say, but Rav Papa, we don't paskin like Rav Papa. However, the Shalach le Rav Chizda le Rav Nachman, that Rav Chizda sent to Rav Nachman, we learned to Daf Chav Zayin, I believe, about boshes, about embarrassment payments in Bavel. Where am I? V'shalach le and Rav Nachman sent back to Rav Chizda. Chizde, Knoso Komagbis b'Bavel. Hey, Chizde, what are you doing? You're judging fines in Bavel. That's not allowed. So therefore, it sounds like we cannot judge embarrassment cases in Bavel. Elo ki avdinan shlichusayu. So rather, when we do, when we say that things can be adjudicated in Bavel and that the judges are acting as the representatives of the judges for Eretz Yisrael, so they have to be common and also involve a loss of money. But things that are common but don't involve financial loss, or things that are uncommon, even though there is financial loss, lo avdinon shlichusayu, we do not adjudicate and we do not say that the judges are acting on behalf of the judges in Eretz Yisrael. Hilkach, therefore, adam ba'adam. So when it comes to a person who hurts another person, even though there's financial damage, but since it's uncommon, so we do not adjudicate it. And when it comes to embarrassment, even though it is common, since there's no financial loss caused by the embarrassment, caused directly by the embarrassment, so we do not adjudicate it in Bavel, acting on behalf as the messengers of Eretz Yisrael. B'shor govin b'Bavel, but in ox that damages another ox, we do collect in Bavel because it's common and there is a loss of this financial loss. But Rava says, Shor shehizik ein govin also b'Bavel. But Rava says that a damaging ox, we do not adjudicate, we do not collect the damages in Bavel. The azikman. Well, okay, and we say the azikman, who is this ox damaging? If you're going to say, well, the ox damaged a person, and we said that that people damages, we do not collect in Bavel. But my area sure the azik adam, afilu adam the azik adam nami ain't govin also b'Bavel. But if we're talking about an ox that gores a person, well, why are we saying that dafka we don't collect the damages from an ox that gores in Bavel? We also wouldn't collect the damages of a person that gores a person in Bavel. So Ella Pshita the azik short. No, so it must be that we're talking about an ox that gores an ox, and we're saying Vikatani ain't govin also b'Bavel, and we're saying that it cannot be collected in Bavel. We also bitam ocha b'mur. Well, yeah, but the reason why it can't be collected in Bavel is because that's talking about a short tam. Short tam pays chatzi nezek. And there was a machlokes that we saw in Daf Tezvav about is chatzi nezek knas or is chatzi nezek mamun. So this assumes that chatzi nezek is knas. And because we're talking about chatzi nezek, which is a knas, we would not collect it in Bavel. But Rava said, okay, and when we say that you can collect for oxen in Bavel, it would be for a shor muad, which would be mamun and not a knas. But Rava says ein muad b'Bavel. But Rava says that there are no shor muads in Bavel because in order to become a shor muad, you have to be first a shor tam, and there's no shor tams in Bavel because it's a knas. So Amri de Iyayid Hasam. It's talking about a scenario where it was worn 3 times in Eretz Yisrael and then it came to Bavel, so the only thing that it did was the shor muading in Bavel, and that could be collected in Bavel because that's mammon. And they brought the ox to here. But that would be uncommon. That would be uncommon, and therefore we said that the uncommon things we would not do in Bavel. Well, the people that warned it were rabbis from the judges from Eretz Yisrael, so they were able to judge the Knossos, and then after it had already been warned from the rabbis in Eretz Yisrael, so then in Bavel it became a muad, and that was able to be judged. So but still at the end of the day, that's also uncommon. And we said that by uncommon scenarios, we would not be considered in Bavel to be the representatives of the judges in Eretz Yisrael. Rather, when Rava says that we can adjudicate a shore in Bavel, we're talking about Shane and Regel. These are things that are muadim mitchilas, and it's already right. There is no tam state of them, and therefore it's considered mammon right straight up, and that could be adjudicated in Bavel. That was Daf Peidal of Masechta BavaKama. We talked a lot about pay versus plop. That was like the first part, right? Pay versus plop. We say lemaise pay, not plop. And then we had an interesting discussion there at the end about what kind of things could be adjudicated in Bavel. So I think we said things that were common and have chesed and kiss be'etzim. That was interesting. All right, peace out.